All the children born to Arthur Croft's girlfriends had something wrong with them. Only the daughter from his first marriage was flawless, and he worshipped her for it. The son I had given him, the gentle boy I cherished despite his delays, was hurled to his death by that very daughter. Then she plunged a knife into me and hissed. So, what if you had a son? He was defective. He was never going to be a Croft. Now I have been returned to the instant before that end, and with this second chance a new gift lives inside me, something I call the legacy system. The system makes conception effortless, and more than that, it lets me decide both the sex and the mind of the children I bear. This time, Arthur Croft will have a brood of brilliant, faultless sons. I came back to find my boy lying on the marble, still and pale. Sophie, Arthur's favorite daughter, stood over him with a satisfied smile. He deserved it, she said, as if naming a household chore. A defective like that doesn't belong here. I fell to my knees and gathered my child against my chest, hate tightening me like a vice. My hand struck her cheek, the sound sharp in the echoing foyer. In my previous life, Sophie was the one who had finished me with a blade. This time I would collect what was owed. She writhed, her proud mask collapsing into frantic tears. Dad, help. She's attacking me. Arthur materialized as if by command, immaculate in his suit, his face a careful blank. He saw the motionless child in my arms and, predictably, his attention landed on Sophie. Are you all right, Sophie? He asked. Arthur is my husband, distant but not cruel in small ways. I was the only woman who had given him a son. That son's developmental problems and the fact he could never carry the Croft legacy had always hung between us, unspoken. What happened? Who is hurting my granddaughter? Mrs. Croft swept into the room behind him, her posture ready to strike. I caught her wrist, my grip iron. She killed my son. Do I not have the right to touch her? In my old life, I absorbed every slight from Sophie and every disdainful look from her grandmother, and I said nothing. Not this time.
He's dead, so he's dead.
He was defective, Mrs. Croft said, voice flat and cold. Sophie was merely doing what needed to be done, culling an unfit member of the Croft line. Arthur stayed silent. Emboldened, Sophie thrust her chin forward. Grandma's right. Useless things should be removed. I am the future of the Croft name. I get to make those choices. She aimed her syrup-sweet face at her father. Dad, since she can't give you a smart child either, maybe you should just get rid of her. My lungs tightened. There was no way I would walk away. The Crofts were woven into the city's power, their name a foundation stone. To be cast out was to vanish. Arthur, I said, voice trembling but steady, I can give you a brilliant son. His head swung toward me, disbelief plain in his eyes. Even his mother's fury stuttered into something like interest. Arthur had fathered many children with other women, most born with severe disabilities, quietly hidden away and erased from the family story. He wanted, more than anything, a healthy son to carry the line, to restore the tradition of primogeniture. Now I had the legacy system. A voice had opened in my mind, clear and clinical. Host, you have been activated. If you use the legacy system to bear Arthur Croft 4 children, your mission will be complete. You will receive infinite wealth. Additionally, you may use this system for vengeance. Bear as many children as you need, choose their sex and intelligence at will. I agreed without hesitation. Vengeance and mission, both in one. Dad, don't listen to her, Sophie cried, rushing to Arthur's side. She can't guarantee a smart son. That's not something you simply pick. Arthur's brief hope dimmed. He turned to me, his expression hardening. You already gave me a child with problems. Why would another be different? He exhaled, a decision in the air. Still, you were always the most compliant of my wives, and the only one to give me a boy. I'll give you $2 million, and then you can leave. He began to walk away. I lunged and wrapped my arms around his leg, pleading with everything I had. Trust me once more. I promise I can do this. If I fail, if the child is not perfect, you can cast me out then. It will not be too late. You manipulative woman, Sophie spat, trying to kick me free. Arthur stopped her with a look, then crouched to study my face, his voice low. Are you certain? I swear it. My certainty snagged even Mrs. Croft's attention. Hope, raw and greedy, lit in her eyes. If you truly can, then perhaps I will accept you as my daughter-in-law, she said slowly. Arthur nodded, convinced.
Fine.
We'll try. I let out the breath I hadn't known I'd been holding, tightening my fingers around my son's cooling body. Don't worry, my love, I thought. vengeance already forming like a plan. Mommy will make them pay. Sophie screamed as if everything she loved had been stolen. Dad, you can't believe her. She's lying to you. I lowered my voice to a fragile, wounded whisper. Sophie, you've always feared a brother would threaten your place as heir. Relax. I would never let him compete with you. There was a flicker of pity in Arthur's eyes. He drew me close, then fixed his daughter with a cold stare. That's enough, he said sharply. Whether she can do it or not is not for you to decide. We will find out soon enough. If the child is a healthy boy, he will inherit the Croft name. Color drained from Sophie's face. She opened her mouth and then closed it, silenced by the authority she feared. I pressed a private smile against Arthur's chest. You want the inheritance, Sophie? I will make sure you don't see one penny. My promise to give Arthur an heir changed everything overnight. His attitude toward me softened, and he even arranged a grand funeral for our son, complete with white roses and mourners in black. At the cemetery, Sophie's eyes burned with hatred so fierce it seemed almost tangible. I ignored her glare and clung to Arthur's arm, whispering silently to the child I'd lost, "Rest now, my darling. Mother's only just begun." As we returned to the car, I turned to Arthur. "Darling," I murmured, "let's start trying again tonight." A slow, pleased smile curved his lips. "All right, Vivi. I'll trust you this once. If you truly give me a brilliant son, I'll give you the world." "I will," I said, meaning every word. Later that afternoon, I found Sophie waiting in the rose garden, her expression sharpened with malice. "Don't get comfortable," she hissed. "When you fail to give him a healthy boy, my father will throw you out. And you will fail. His genes are defective." "If his genes are defective," I said, stepping closer until she could feel my breath, "then how are you so perfect?" Her eyes widened.
I didn't mean it that way."
The truth fell into place like a final puzzle piece. That was why all of Arthur's other children had been born sickly or impaired.
His genes were flawed.
And Sophie, radiant, flawless Sophie, couldn't be his child at all. I said nothing. I left her standing among the roses, her face pale and uncertain. That night, after Arthur and I had been together, I broached the subject carefully. He admitted he'd been receiving medical treatment for years, insisting the problem was mostly resolved. It didn't matter to me. The system would handle what nature could not. As I drifted into sleep, the familiar voice returned in my mind. "Host, a fertilized egg has implanted. You may now select its sex and intelligence level." Without hesitation, I gave my command. Boy. High intelligence. I had already lost one son. This time, and every time after, my children would be perfect. They would have the future their brother had been denied. A month later, the test confirmed it. I was pregnant. Arthur was overjoyed. He swept me up and spun me around the living room, his laughter echoing off the marble walls. "This is it, Vivi. The Croft heir is on his way." "I hope it's a boy," he whispered against my hair. "Dad," Sophie cut in, her voice slicing through the air. "Aren't you afraid she'll just give you another defective one? You know your genes are the problem." She turned toward her grandmother. "Tell him, Grandma." I tilted my head and asked softly, "But if his genes are flawed, how are you so perfectly normal, Sophie?" She'd fallen into the trap again. Arthur and his mother both stiffened as the thought took root. Suspicion flickered in their eyes. Before Arthur could speak, his ex-wife, Eleanor, swept gracefully into the room. "We went over this years ago," she said smoothly. "Even with Arthur's condition, there's always a small chance for a healthy child. Sophie was simply a miracle." She threw her daughter a sharp look, a warning to stay quiet. Sophie forced a smile.
"Exactly.
Besides, I look just like Dad. Don't I? You're just trying to turn him against me, Vivian." I let my shoulders tremble and press myself against Arthur. "I'd never do that," I whispered. "You believe me, don't you?" Arthur's weakness had always been his need to protect the helpless. As expected, his arm tightened around me. "That's enough," he said, glaring at them both. "I don't want to hear another word about my genes. I believe this child will be perfect." But later, when we were alone, doubt crept into his expression. I brushed my fingers through his hair, voice gentle. "Don't worry, Arthur. I already had a specialist friend run early tests. Everything's normal." His eyes lit up. "Really?" "Of course," I lied easily. "It's a healthy baby." Relief flooded him. He kissed me again and again, tears glinting in his eyes. He loved this unborn child already, and I would use that devotion to secure my control. The Croft legacy, the Croft wealth, all of it would belong to my sons. The next morning, Sophie came into my room with a glass of milk and a smile too sweet to trust. "Aunt Vivian," she said, "I've been awful. Please accept this as an apology." I looked at the glass, recognizing her intent immediately. She thought I was naive. I smiled, accepted it, and drank every drop. Minutes later, agony tore through me. Pain flared in my abdomen, and blood spilled down my legs. I collapsed, gasping for air. Sophie stood over me, smirking. "There goes your precious baby," she said coldly. Then she laughed. "Let's see how you win my father's heart now." Arthur sped me to the hospital, pale and furious. The doctors told us what I already feared, the same cold certainty as before. The baby was gone. Lab work showed the milk had been laced with a potent abortifacient. Arthur's anger erupted. He kicked a chair until it clanged against the wall. "Who gave my wife that milk?" he demanded. Silence fell. Sophie stood small and still, pretending to be invisible. I raised a trembling hand and pointed straight at her, my voice barely steady. "Sophie." She gave me the milk. In a heartbeat, Arthur was across the room, fingers clamping the front of Sophie's blouse. "Was it you? Did you poison your aunt?" "No," Sophie sobbed, scrambling for an excuse. "I was sleeping this morning. The housekeeper can prove it." Arthur's grip loosened slightly while he phoned the housekeeper, who confirmed Sophie had been in her room that morning. Mrs. Croft was livid. However, her fury turned on me the moment the child was gone. "How dare you accuse my granddaughter?" she screamed. Arthur stepped back toward my bed, calmer but firm. "Vivi, you can't make false accusations." I forced tears, shaking my head. "I'm not lying." She stood over me and said my baby was gone. "Watch the recording on my phone." I held up the device. Sophie's face drained. She lunged for it, but Arthur grabbed my phone. The video played, Sophie's cruel laugh filling the room. "There goes your precious baby. Ha ha ha. Let's see how you win my father's favor now." Silence pressed down. Arthur turned, his face hard as stone. Sophie stumbled. "Dad, let me explain." The slap sent her sprawling. "Sophie," Arthur said, voice low and dangerous, "have I pampered you so much you would kill for advantage?" He called for security. "Take her to the West Wing. Confine her to her rooms. She is not to leave." Mrs. Croft shook with rage. "You monster! That was my grandson." Her words fueled Arthur's wrath. He struck Sophie again, until she was dragged away, bleeding and sobbing. Arthur came back to my bedside, remorse raw in his voice. "Vivi, I'm so sorry. I misjudged you. I will fix this. Rest, recover." I gripped his hand, whispering, "I can give you another son, Arthur. My body will carry again soon." He paused, unreadable, then the hunger for an heir overrode everything. He carried me to a nearby empty room, rough with desperation. The system soothed me, mending wounds, easing pain. As we made love, a notification flickered inside my mind, calm and clinical. 2 fertilized eggs have implanted. I chose, without hesitation, 2 boys, both high intelligence. After such loss, producing an even greater miracle would bind him to me forever. Back at the estate, Sophie was locked away in the West Wing, denied visitors, her pleas ignored. I had predicted she would try something, and in a way I had let the first child die, to turn Arthur wholly against her. 2 months later, the test confirmed I was pregnant again. At the ultrasound, the doctor went silent, eyes widening. "It's triplets," he said. Even I was stunned. Triplets? How could that be? Arthur's grin split his face, happiness almost painful to look at. "Triplets. Vivi, you are our miracle." Mrs. Croft wept, clutching her chest. "You have restored the House of Croft. From now on, you are my daughter." Arthur promised protection. "Guards, I will station them. I will not leave their side. I will protect these children with my life." Excitement swelled in me. Their births would finish Sophie. The system chimed, calm as ever. "Host, in recognition of your efforts, you have been awarded a bonus child. You must protect these triplets." I laid a hand over my belly, fierce and possessive. I would guard them with everything I had. When we returned home, Sophie met us in the entry, humbling herself on the floor. "Aunt Vivian, I am sorry, I was cruel. I promised to be good." The performance was overripe with contrition. Arthur showed a flicker of pity. She was still his daughter. I rose and helped her up, smiling. "I forgive you, Sophie." On cue, Eleanor entered carrying an ultrasound report, the timing too neat. My pulse stuttered. This was a move I had not expected from her. Eleanor announced, casually, I'm pregnant, Arthur. We were together that night. Joy transformed Arthur's face again. Eleanor had been the source of his one perfect child, Sophie, and now she offered another sure thing. Why did you wait to tell me? He asked, delighted. I wanted it to be a surprise, she said, eyes flicking toward me, concern arranged like a mask. I heard Vivian is pregnant too. Are her babies healthy? Arthur's expression hardened. With triplets, it's uncertain. Eleanor's concern deepened, strategic and sharp. If there's a problem, it could mean scandal, the city mocking the Crofts for producing defective children. Her words landed. Arthur's face tightened. I moved closer, conspiratorial. My specialist friend ran tests. They're all healthy. I lowered my voice, whispering the lie that secured him. And all three are boys. His gloom vanished, replaced by rapture. He embraced me, blissful, imagining 3 heirs. I saw fury blooming on Eleanor and Sophie's faces. Sophie opened her mouth, but Eleanor clamped her arm shut with a warning tug. It was clear now they would not stop plotting. I would have to be even more careful. Eleanor and I went into labor on the same day. The hospital buzzed with attention, every nurse whispering about my swollen belly and the high-profile doctors Arthur had summoned. He'd hired the top obstetrician in the state for me and another renowned surgeon for Eleanor. He claimed it was to ensure both of us were safe, but I knew the truth. This wasn't just a delivery, it was a test. Whoever bore the healthy heir would be the one to remain by his side. As they rolled me toward the operating room, Sophie leaned down beside my stretcher. Her whisper was sharp enough to cut glass. Enjoy your moment, Vivian. By tomorrow, you'll be nothing but a memory. I smiled faintly. Let's wait and see who the real loser is. When I opened my eyes again, the surgery was over. The steady hum of machines surrounded me. Eleanor lay in the bed next to mine, pale but alert. Arthur stood between us, torn by anticipation. Moments later, a nurse entered, pushing a trolley with 4 bassinets. Congratulations, Mr. Croft, she said brightly. You now have 3 sons and a daughter. Her smile faltered as she added, though the little girl shows some developmental complications. Arthur's joy vanished in an instant. And the boys? Are they healthy? All 3 boys are perfectly fine, the nurse assured him. Strong lungs, clear vitals, everything normal. Arthur's shoulders relaxed. He turned to me, glowing. Vivian, you've done it. Thank you for my sons. The nurse blinked, confused. Oh no, sir. The triplet boys belong to Ms. Eleanor. Ms. Vivian delivered twins. One passed away, and the surviving baby is the girl. The silence that followed was suffocating. That can't be right, Arthur stammered. Eleanor's eyes shimmered with fake surprise. Arthur, I didn't tell you, because I wanted to surprise you. Triplets. Can you believe it? Her performance was flawless. Almost. I steadied my breathing and spoke clearly. Those boys are mine. If you doubt me, let's prove it scientifically. A DNA test, handled by your own family doctor. Sophie's voice cracked.
No.
You'll just bribe the doctor. Then choose the lab yourself, I said, never looking away from Arthur. Send the samples anywhere you want. I'm not afraid of the truth. Arthur hesitated, then nodded slowly. I'll send them to a private lab overseas. No one will know where, not even me, until the courier delivers it. We'll settle this once and for all. While we waited for the results, Eleanor and Sophie were unraveling. Their nerves were stretched to breaking. Arthur, please, you have to believe me, Eleanor pleaded daily, tears at the ready. Those boys are yours. If the test says otherwise, it means Vivian's behind it. Arthur's voice was flat, almost cold. The samples went to a lab in Switzerland. No one could have tampered with them. I, on the other hand, felt no anxiety. DNA doesn't bend to lies. A few days later, the courier arrived with a sealed envelope. Arthur's hands trembled as he tore it open, his eyes darting over the results. Then came relief. They're mine, he breathed. Vivian's boys are mine. He looked at me with unguarded warmth. I knew it. I knew you wouldn't deceive me. Sophie's face twisted in disbelief.
No.
I heard her. I heard her talking to her lover about getting pregnant. She's tricked you. Arthur's patience snapped. Enough. His voice thundered through the room. You've accused her of everything imaginable, and still she forgave you. But this ends today. From this moment on, Sophie, you are no longer a Croft. Leave my sight. Sophie crumpled to the floor, choking on her own sobs. Dad, please. She's lying. She's evil. You can't let her destroy us. Before I could speak, I noticed a second folder tucked inside the courier's envelope. There's another document, I said calmly, handing it to Arthur. He read the page, and his face darkened with a rage I'd never seen before. Without warning, he lunged at Sophie, his hands closing around her throat. "You're not my daughter," he hissed, trembling with fury. "All these years, your mother made a fool of me." Sophie wrenched free and snatched the paper from his hand. It was another DNA test, this one proving that she and Arthur shared no biological relation. "This is fake," she screamed. "Vivian planted this. She's trying to destroy us." A new voice cut through her hysteria. "I was the one who ordered that test." Arthur's mother stood in the doorway, her expression like carved stone. "Vivian once mentioned how little you resembled your father," she said coldly. And I remembered Arthur's genetic condition. The chances of Eleanor conceiving a perfectly healthy child back then were nearly impossible. "So I had your DNA tested too. The results speak for themselves. You were never a Croft." The room went still. Sophie's denial turned into a strangled cry. Eleanor swayed on her feet, her mask of composure cracking for the first time. And I sat quietly, watching the entire empire of lies they had built begin to collapse around them. Sophie's face drained of color. Before she could speak, Eleanor stumbled forward and dropped to her knees before Arthur, clutching at his trousers. "Arthur, please. Sophie is your daughter. There must be some kind of mistake." Her voice shook. Vivian must have bribed the lab. Before Arthur could respond, his mother intervened, her voice cutting through the chaos. "That's impossible. Vivian had no idea which lab was used. I was the one who handled the samples, and I personally supervised the procedure. I'm a physician, Eleanor. I know when a test is genuine." I stayed silent, watching the scene play out like a carefully rehearsed play. Everything was unfolding exactly as planned. I had counted on Mrs. Croft's professional pride and her need for certainty. Once she involved herself, there could be no questions about the authenticity of the results. Cornered, Eleanor broke down. "Arthur, I made a mistake. I was drunk. It only happened once. But Sophie didn't know. She's innocent in all this. You raised her. You love her. Please don't take that away." Arthur looked at her with eyes that had turned to ice. "You betrayed me and made me a fool. You lied every day of our marriage. And now you expect sympathy?" He kicked her hand away. "I want every cent I spent on Sophie returned. She's not my blood, and I owe her nothing." Sophie clawed at his leg, sobbing. "Daddy, please. I am your daughter. I always will be." Arthur didn't flinch. "Get out," he said coldly. "If I ever see either of you near this house again, I won't stop at words." Security escorted them out while Mrs. Croft turned her back in disgust. As the door shut, I finally allowed myself a quiet breath. One more thread of the past had been cut. Now, all that remained was to bring my new children safely into the world, and my vengeance would be complete. Time passed. The triplets grew fast, too fast. By the time they started preschool, they were solving equations meant for middle schoolers. The teachers called them prodigies. The city papers called them the future of the Croft Empire. Arthur called them his pride. He came home one night grinning like a man who owned the world. "Tomorrow, I'll be announcing the inheritance plan. And, Vivi, I think I'll leave Sophie a small trust. You don't mind, do you?" I hesitated just enough to seem sincere. "Of course not. She's still the daughter you raised." Then I smiled faintly, resting my hand on my stomach. "But the doctor confirmed something today. I'm pregnant again."
Twins.
2 boys. Arthur's eyes lit up with manic joy.
Twins. Again.
"You're extraordinary, Vivi. 5 sons, 5. The Croft family name will never die." He clapped his hands together, almost giddy. "You're right. Sophie doesn't deserve a cent. Everything belongs to our boys." I smiled. Exactly as planned. Sophie had destroyed my first child. Now I was taking everything she had ever wanted. A few weeks later, fate handed me a pleasant surprise. I ran into her downtown, wearing designer clothes no doubt funded by Arthur's mother's pity. Her expression twisted the moment she saw me. "You witch," she spat. "Triplets, now twins? You've been using fertility treatments to manipulate my father, haven't you?" I met her glare with calm amusement. "You're right. I did." She blinked, stunned. "You admit it? Why shouldn't I?" "Go ahead, tell him," I said lightly. "Let's see who he believes. The woman carrying his heirs, or the girl he disowned." Her confidence faltered. She turned to leave, but I answered a fake call on my phone, loud enough for her to hear. "Yes, I know," I said sweetly. "I couldn't have done it without you. These children are your greatest creation. I'll make sure you're rewarded, but keep quiet for now." I hung up and looked up just in time to see realization dawn on her face. She thought she'd caught me confessing.
Perfect.
As she stalked away, I stared at the blank screen. The call had never happened. Go on, Sophie. Take the bait. Walk right into the trap. The triplets' third birthday became the grandest event of the year. The Croft estate overflowed with aristocrats, politicians, and society's elite. The celebration was a declaration of power, and Arthur basked in it. On stage, he held a microphone, radiant with pride. From this day forward, he announced, the Croft fortune will be divided equally among my 5 sons. The final 2 shares will remain in trust until my wife delivers the twins. Applause thundered across the hall until a furious voice broke through. You're being played, Dad. Heads turned. Sophie had crashed the event, her face wild with anger. She stormed up to the stage and snatched the microphone. Don't you think it's strange? Triplets, then twins? How can that be natural? The room erupted into whispers. She's right, it sounds impossible. I heard Arthur was sterile once. How could she keep conceiving? Could the children be someone else's? Arthur's face darkened. Sophie smirked, sensing blood. You tested their maternity, but what about their paternity? How do you know they're even yours? I stood, my voice calm and clear. If you want a paternity test, we can do it right now. I have nothing to hide. Arthur said nothing, but his fingers flew over his phone, sending a message. I knew who it was to the Swiss lab again. He lived by reputation, and the murmurs around him burned like acid. Sophie stepped closer to me, her voice low and venomous. You think you've won, but the truth always comes out. When this is over, you'll be the one begging. I met her eyes with a quiet smile. We'll see who's begging when the results come in. Inside, I could already feel victory humming beneath my skin. The final move was in play. Arthur's hands trembled as he stared at the sealed envelope, unable to tear it open. Sophie couldn't wait. She snatched it from his grip and ripped it apart, only for her confident smile to collapse into confusion. Arthur took the report, scanning it with wide eyes. Then relief flooded his face. It's true, he breathed, laughing shakily. They really are my sons. He turned to me, gathering me into his arms before kissing me in front of everyone. It was all a misunderstanding. Sophie was livid. You're blind. I heard her. She was talking to her lover, thanking him. She's lying to you. Arthur's expression darkened. Enough. You've gone too far this time. Vivian is my wife, and you will not slander her again.
Get out.
She stumbled back, shaking her head. No, this isn't possible. Dad, I'm your daughter. She's the outsider. I calmly picked up another folder that had arrived in the same courier's package. Then maybe you should take a look at this one. Arthur opened it. His face turned cold as he read. He lunged forward, grabbing Sophie by the arm. So it's true, he said, his voice sharp as a blade. You're not my child. Your mother deceived me all along. It's a lie, Sophie gasped, yanking the paper from his hand.
She faked this.
She's framing us. Actually, a clear voice cut through the chaos. I'm the one who requested that test. Mrs. Croft stepped into view, her gaze firm and unyielding. I've had doubts for a long time. You never resembled my son, and given Arthur's condition back then, your very existence seemed impossible. So I ran the test myself. And now we know you're not one of us. Sophie went pale as Eleanor burst into the hall, her face streaked with tears. Arthur, please, it's all a misunderstanding, she cried, throwing herself to her knees. Sophie is your daughter. Mrs. Croft shook her head. Impossible. I oversaw the entire process. The lab is trustworthy. Eleanor's composure broke. I made a mistake, she confessed. It was one night. I was drunk, but Sophie's innocent. She didn't know. Arthur stared at her like she was a stranger. You lied to me for years, he said flatly. You made a fool out of me. You'll repay every cent I ever spent on her. She's not my daughter, and she's not welcome in this family. Sophie clutched at his leg, crying. Please, Daddy, don't do this. I am your daughter. He pulled free, his voice like iron. Get out. If either of you shows your face here again, I'll make sure you regret it. Security dragged them from the house. Their screams faded down the hall until silence reclaimed the room. For the first time in years, I felt true peace. My revenge had reached its peak. All that remained was to bring my last 2 sons safely into the world. Rumors spread quickly after that. Arthur made sure Eleanor and Sophie were ruined. No money, no connections, no way to start over. Eventually, Their downfall became public gossip, a morality tale whispered over cocktails. Meanwhile, I gave birth to twin boys. They were perfect, bright, and beautiful. Arthur was ecstatic. He handed me a black credit card with no limit. "You've given me everything I ever wanted," he said, his voice breaking with emotion. His mother presented me with the Croft heirloom, a sapphire necklace once reserved for the family matriarch. "I misjudged you, Vivian," she said softly. "Welcome to the family." In that moment, the voice of the system echoed in my mind. "Mission complete. You will now receive infinite wealth. Transfer to new world in progress." I accepted without hesitation. Still, before leaving, I looked at Arthur and asked, "If I were to disappear one day, would you take care of our sons?" He laughed, unaware. "Of course. They're my legacy, and you're never leaving me, Viv." But I already knew my exit was near. The day I was discharged, Eleanor and Sophie ambushed me. They dragged me to a warehouse and demanded $5 million from Arthur. He came running, frantic, and made the payment. As Eleanor counted the cash, Sophie leaned in close. "You ruined everything," she whispered. "Now it's your turn." Then she drove a knife into my chest. Arthur's scream echoed through the building as police swarmed in, alerted by the tracker I'd activated before leaving home. They were arrested before they could flee. It had all been planned. The system required my death, but I chose the method. This way, my end became the final piece of justice. With fading breath, I whispered to Arthur, "Take care of our boys." Then the world went still. I watched from above as he wept, as he buried me, as he gave everything to our sons. Eleanor and Sophie received the punishment they deserved. And then I was gone, reborn in another world, free at last. Years later, the system sent an update. Arthur had passed away peacefully. Our sons had become men of power and brilliance, expanding the Croft legacy beyond imagination. They were safe. They were happy.
And that was enough for me.